Hi, I'm Peggy Farron, and we are live with the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel, nature, and fine art photography. Welcome to episode number 73. We're going to talk about how it's never too late to follow your dreams with Judy Malek. But first, will you help us reach our goal of 1,000 YouTube subscribers by February 20th? Please. If you're watching this on YouTube, all you have to do is click the subscribe button down on the bottom right of the video. If you're watching us live on Facebook or listening to us as a podcast, go to youtube.com/understandphotography, and right under the video it says subscribe. It will send you a little push notification. It's just a little tiny pop-up in the bottom right of your screen whenever we have a new video coming out. But it will help us immensely. We really, really appreciate it. Again, we're available. We shoot this live on Facebook. And if you're watching this for the second time, this introduction for the second time, we had a few technical problems in the beginning, so we started over. Live on Facebook. Facebook.com/understandphotography at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays, and then we put it on YouTube and on iTunes as a podcast. So just do a search for the Understand Photography Show, and you'll find us. Understand Photography has just 2 more openings for trips this year. We have a ladies' photo retreat coming up May 4th through the 6th here in Naples, Florida, and it is a weekend full of fun photography. We do night photography with the streaking lights and things like that. We do the steel wool photography. We rent a private boat, and go out to photograph this Cape Romano dome home, which this kind of cool looking house that this guy built in the 80s, and now it's like going out into the sea. So we do that. It's just a weekend full of all kinds of creative photography. So it's good for beginners to advance because it's limited to just 3 ladies. You could be put on the list for our Apalachicola trip. That's April 16th through the 20th, but it is a full trip. So if you're really interested in that, ask me, and I can put you on the mailing list. All right, just one more commercial. Our 4 Weeks to Proficiency in Photography is our signature course. That's the course that's going to give you the solid foundation in photography. If you don't understand exposure, and if you're not shooting in the manual mode on a regular basis comfortably, everything else is kind of hard for you. So we're going to get you to really understand exposure, and from that, I'm not kidding you, everything else starts to make sense. So it's a 4-week class. It's online, but I'm there with you. So the first class is shoot in manual, second is composition, third is all about lighting, including flash, and the fourth one is what we call the techie stuff, where we're going to go into metering modes and focus modes and things like that. But I'm going to be right there with you. If you have an immediate question, I'm going to immediately answer you. So it's online, but it's not just a straight video. You're going to have me. I come with it. So while you're there on our site, understandphotography.com, check out our other online classes, which are video classes. We've got quite a few good classes because our motto at Understand Photography is we simplify the technical. So if you're like me and you need things shown to you in a step-by-step manner, you will really like our classes. So my guest today for episode number 73 of the Understand Photography Show is Judy Malek. Welcome!
Thank you, Peggy. It's a real honor to be here and to be here with your staff. They're great people, and it's exciting.
Thank you, thank you. And we have a mutual friend in Gary Farber.
We do.
So we're going to say
the best.
Look, you ready? Hi, Gary.
Hi, Gary.
And Gary Farber is one of the owners of Hunt's Photo and Video, which
right.
is a fabulous company. You know, camera stores are going away, it seems like, but Hunt's has, 6 stores, I think, now?
They have 7, actually.
7 stores.
Yeah, 7.
And I think the reason they do so well is they give the customer service. If you can call them up and say, hey, I need a new lens, and this is what I want to do, and this is my and they'll help you through it, right?
So true. And it's a family-run business, which is really nice. And we were fortunate enough to know Gary's father, Jack, and he really and truly was one of the finest men I've ever known. And his mom, too, of course. But his father was a pharmacist, and that's really how it began, in a pharmacy.
Isn't that funny?
And the camera part of it, and then it just grew. Yeah.
And audience, you can watch. I had an interview with Gary Farber. I don't know what episode it was. I didn't look it up, but it was, I think, last March or April on the Understand Photography Show. So you can look at his his interview with me, and I think he's going to come on again too. He's full of information. He
He
knows
is.
everything about the photography business and the industry.
He does, and he loves people. He really connects well.
Yeah.
And he genuinely wants to give you the best service he can.
And they really
Yeah.
do at Hunt's.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you mean when you say it's never too late to follow your dreams? What does that mean?
Well, I often see people, and I've talked with different women, and they said, "Oh, well, it's too late for me to start this, or it's too late to start a new profession." But really, it isn't. I was 50 when I took up golfing, and that was what I did before photography. I love golfing, and I worked hard at it, and I really got into competitive golf. I was competing between clubs. But then I developed sciatica, and that kind of put a damper on the club, on the golfing
But
aspect
you
of it.
took it up when you were 50.
I did.
Wow.
My son-in-law came to visit, and he brought us golf clubs, and I saw them sitting in the garage. We were living in North Carolina at the time, and I felt so sorry for him. And I said, "Rob, I'll go out and play with you, but I don't know a wood from an iron. If you'll take me on those conditions, I'll go." And so I went, and I loved it immediately. I guess my passions just boil when I see something I like, and I just get into it full.
Wow.
So then when I got sciatica and really couldn't play anymore, my husband came to me one day because he had a fellow acquaintance, not really a friend, but an acquaintance who had a video camera and another camera that he really wanted to sell. And he said, "Would you be interested?" And he needed fast cash. He'd just gone through a divorce. He lost his job. So Gary asked me if I would use it, and I said, "I have no idea. I've only used a point and shoot," and that was about the extent of it. But he went ahead and bought it, and I had done a lot of painting in the past. I love painting.
Okay.
So composition and color and things, that was all part of my life. And of course, animals. I've always loved them. My father was a veterinarian, and I grew up with animals. We lived on a farm. I had a horse.
Oh, wow.
So it seemed like it was the culmination of everything that I loved, and it didn't take very long. I went to Wakotahachie on the east coast of Florida, excuse me, and the Bobcat was active at that time. And when I went out, I saw all the big guns, the 500, the 600 lenses. I went, "Oh my goodness!" And I had a little wee tiny camera and a little lens. But there was a man there who said, "Come and see my camera, my lens." And I said, "Oh, I'm never going to see what you're seeing in mine." So it wasn't too long, and I started adding equipment, and the passion just grew and grew and grew.
And do you live close to Wakotahachie?
Yeah, but probably about 3 miles.
Oh, wow, you live really close.
Yeah, 3 miles, and 3 miles from Green Cay and Loxahatchee, and yeah, we live close.
And
very
I'm
close.
going to stop you because I'm going to make another commercial. Joe Fitzpatrick is leading a day trip to Wakotahachie area on, oh gosh, I'm not sure on the date. I think it's February 21st from Naples, Florida. So if you live in Southwest Florida, I'm pretty sure we have openings for it. It's a day trip over there. It's a fabulous place to photograph wildlife. Am I right?
It is. It has so many different species of birds. Plus, if you're fortunate enough, I don't think there's been any bobcats sighted at Wakotahachie this year, but they are at Green Cay.
Okay.
So there's lots to do there for sure.
That is so cool. So what happened? You just started buying equipment and hanging out at Wakotahachie and Green Cay?
I did, and then we started, my husband and I, Gary, started to travel a little bit. We went to Panama, and we did some shooting there, Canopy Lodge and Canopy Tower, which are really good spots to go. And we went to, I actually had gone to Africa back in 91. But I wasn't a photographer then, but I went with our youngest daughter and absolutely loved it. I felt like I had come home. Loved the smell, loved the look, loved the people. And I said, "Oh, Gary, we've got to go back." Well, when I got into photography, then it was a real must.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So now why do you travel so much? Just because you love to travel?
Well, we do like to travel, but fortunately, when my husband retired from the corporate world, he's still working, but not as he did when he was in the corporate world, because he was traveling a lot at that time. He got really interested in the photography that I was doing, and then wanted to travel with me, and then from there grew our business of Nature's Tapestry photographic tours.
So it's
so
called
he does all
Nature's Tapestries Photographic Tours. Is the
adventure
name
tours.
of Adventure Tours. What's
Yeah.
your website? We'll put it right in the
Yeah,
middle.
well, it's my our website, JL Malek Nature's Tapestry, JLM.com.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
We'll put
getting
that
mixed
in the
with it.
show notes too.
Yeah.
So, okay, so go ahead. So because you started traveling, you said, hey, I'm going to start bringing people with me, other photographers, or?
Exactly. That's exactly how it started. We did some traveling together, just Gary and I, and loved it so much. And I said to him, wouldn't it be neat if we could take people on some of the trips that we go on and make it possible for them to see what we see? And so we started, I guess our first trip was to Costa Rica. I had been there, and we met a really nice guide who's a naturalist and a photographer.
Okay.
And he's been with us for the last 8 years.
In Costa Rica. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
And then I had a really dear friend who went to Etosha in Namibia, which is Africa.
I was gonna say, I didn't know we're in Etosha.
And he said, Judy, you need to go. And I said, oh, Michael, he's since passed away, unfortunately. He was a wonderful man. Anyway, we did go with him, and we spent a month.
You spent a month in Namibia?
We spent a month in Etosha. We learned all the places to go. And so then that was the next trip that we added.
Wow.
And it just sort of grew from there.
Now, how long have you been doing this, the photo tours?
About 8 years.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah. It is exciting. And what's a real bonus is the wonderful people you meet. We've met so many people, and we're still friends. I mean, because we try and keep it low key, and it's more like a family experience rather than a large group where you really don't have the intimacy.
Right, you have small groups.
Small groups, yeah.
Now, how do you sell these tours? Because, I have a follower, one of our regular followers on YouTube, and he private messaged me one time, and he said, I don't know if he lives in Africa or he's from Africa, and he wants to do Africa tours, but he's like, I don't know how to get the customers.
Well, we're really low profile. We don't do a lot. I post on 500px, and my husband posts on Facebook, and I post on Facebook. And it's really through the postings. People see the pictures. I might write every once in a while a little article saying that we're going on a trip. And if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. And that's really how we've gotten our people.
So is that from posting a lot of pictures? So you get followers on 500px, and is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're gaining followers because your photography is so fast, so good, basically. And you're posting it. For me, like I went on a trip to Italy this year. Mm-hmm. I took thousands of pictures. I was there a month, and they're all in RAW on my computer.
I know, it takes time.
The only ones I've shown anybody are my cell phone pictures.
I know, it does. It takes time. I limit it to one a day. I mean, I don't post usually more than one a day.
But you post one picture a day.
One picture a day.
And Gary also?
Gary does. He doesn't post every day, but
pretty much every day, so that would be 2 pictures a day.
Yeah.
Basically promoting your business. Mm-hmm. It simplifies it. It's work, but it simplifies it.
It does. We don't have any flyers. We don't on the website, of course. On my website, we talk about our tours, but really, it's just through the
being
internet.
consistent.
Yep.
That's the hardest part. I have all these I'm going to do all this, and I'll do something for a week, and then I get busy with everything else. And
I know, but you're doing so many things too.
Too many things.
Not too many things. No, I didn't say
I am doing too many things. I know I am.
No.
So what are some of the destinations this year?
Well, we've got a trip coming up to Costa Rica in April.
Okay. Do you have any openings?
It's almost full now. There'll be room probably for two more. Yeah, Gary said 2 more. And then we have a possible trip to Ecuador in August, but that isn't definite yet. And we also have a trip to Namibia in May and June, and that's going to be a longer one. That's a 3-week trip.
That's this May?
Uh-huh.
You have openings on that?
Yes, we have openings on that. And then we have a trip to the Pantanal, which is also a wonderful destination.
Well, tell me a little bit about that. I don't know that much about that. That's in Brazil.
That's in Brazil.
And what is it? What is it? Is it just an area, or?
Yeah, the Pantanal is a wetland, and it's the largest wetland in the world. And it's just teeming with wildlife. It's a paradise for photographers. I mean, that's the home of the jaguars, and we go out on a boat, and it's just so exciting. You're going along the river, which is beautiful, just to see the scenery. But then when you get a glimpse, your first glimpse of a jaguar, it's just mind-blowing. They're so beautiful. And it's so wonderful to see them free.
Are they easy to see? I mean...
Well, we saw 11 sightings on our last trip.
11?
11 sightings, yep.
Because it's not like here. You know, there was a guest on my show who's a friend of mine. He worked at the Panther Preserve here in the Everglades.
I've never seen a Florida panther.
He worked there for 20 years and never saw a panther.
He didn't.
So they're very shy, and so people come down thinking they might see one, but it's very rare. But the jaguars...
Yeah, the jaguar.
That's so cool.
The reason you see them is because they're usually along the river. They feed on caiman, which is, similar to our alligators, and they also like the capybaras, which are the largest rodents in the world.
What is that called?
Capybara.
Oh, you're saying it with a Spanish accent, aren't you?
Well,
capybara, I think we say, right?
Well,
that's why I didn't understand it. Speak American.
Do you know what it is?
Are you American? Are you Canadian?
No, we're Canadian.
I could hear that in your accent.
But we lived 10 years in South America.
Oh, so you've got that.
Yeah, so
you're pronouncing
Spanish
it.
is like second language.
So you lived 10 years in South. When did you
our
do
children
that?
were all well. My husband was with a company called Beecham, which is a British company, and it took him from Canada to the States, and then from the States to Venezuela. And I was, 24 years old, I guess, when we went 7 months pregnant with our first child.
Oh, my goodness.
He's taken me on quite a journey. Anyway, it was awesome. And we had our first child there, and then we moved to Argentina, and we lived in Buenos Aires, had 2 more children there. And then we moved to Mexico, and then back to Canada for a little stint, and then back down to the States again.
Oh, my goodness.
But it's been fun.
Now, do you live in Florida full time now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You
And
have
it's
had
been
an
great.
exciting life.
It has been.
Now let's go all the way back to, because we're talking about following your dream. Yeah, I've got plenty of water. It's never too late to follow your dreams. So, like, you took up golf at age 50, and you took up photography after
60.
that at 60.
Yep.
How long from the time you started photography until you started doing these tours?
Oh, well, that would be probably about 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
But
and how in the beginning, how did you sell your tours? Because there was no 500 pics 5 years ago, was there? There was Facebook, but it wasn't quite as intense.
That's a good question.
Did you get involved with like the camera clubs and?
No, I've never really been involved with the camera clubs, but it's been interesting. When I first started photography, I came home one day and there was an email, and it was from Washington. It was from National Geographic, and it was a picture that had been taken in Panama. And I think I'd been photographing maybe 2 or 3 years, and it was a red-legged honeycreeper. And I remember saying to the girl, I said, "How did you ever find me?" Because I wasn't really posting anywhere.
Yeah.
But what had happened was the man who had Canopy Lodge had asked me if he could have some pictures for his website. And they found it on that. And so they used it for their map of Panama.
Oh my gosh.
And that was thrilling to me.
Are you kidding me? I would be dancing
I thought,
on the ceiling.
I mean, I didn't go after it, and it just seemed like things happened, and it was exciting.
Wow. So, I mean, so it sounds to me like the best advice is to become a really good photographer.
And to also, the next step was National Wildlife Federation. They're a wonderful organization, and I liked them because they were so much into the preservation and conservation of wildlife.
Yeah.
And so I decided to enter a contest, and honestly, I knew nothing about it. I didn't even know there were any prizes. I just entered because you always pay to enter most contests. That's
right.
how they earn their money. And so I entered, and then I got an email saying, well, you'd made it to the finals. And then the next email said, you're the grand prize winner.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I went, what? I was up in Pennsylvania at the time with my daughter, and I went, you got to be kidding me. And then I went back and I searched for the year before. And the winner it was a $5,000 prize. And I went, oh my gosh, that was another camera. So those things it just happened. But
Wow.
but unbeknownst to me that there was anything. And then, of course, Nature's Best is a wonderful contest for people to be involved in.
Nature's Best.
Yep.
Okay.
They have two a year. One is the backyard, and one is for the Winland, Smith Rice. That's the one that they usually have their pictures in the Smithsonian.
Okay. Okay. And I think you can enter that as a club too, or something. I remember
I
somebody
think you can.
telling me
I don't
that.
know
and
about
I can't
that,
remember.
but I think that's
I'll
true.
have to look into that at some point.
Yeah.
Some point. So that's good advice, though. I've had other guests say that entering contests has been amazing for their careers, because then all these other people see your pictures because you won this contest, or even if you don't even win, if you just get into the finals.
That's right. Yeah.
People start following you on social media and all that other stuff. So that's good advice.
But it's the passion of it all. It's what we get to see in nature that's the rewards. You just...
So how did you learn photography? Did you take classes, or did
No.
you just start?
I read. I just started, practicing. I love flight and action and emotion. I try to catch the emotion of whatever I'm photographing. And I just did a lot of reading. I had good mentors. I mean, people that were good friends, that were good photographers in the beginning. Alfred and Fabiola Forens were great friends. I traveled with her. We went out to Wyoming together, and Alfred. And I think that was a really big benefit to me.
Yeah.
And they had been shooting a lot longer than I had, so that was very beneficial.
I'll tell you what, I've gotten, of course, my first mentor was a lady named Sarah Timmons, and she was a portrait photographer, and that's what I was, I started off as a wedding photographer, but I really wanted to get more into portrait photography, and I met her, and she was so good to me. I learned so much from her. And then as I started getting into the nature photography and that kind of stuff, then I met Joe Fitzpatrick, he's like a walking encyclopedia of photography.
Well,
The man knows everything.
That's worth, it's more than gold. It is.
Oh,
it's a
are you
treasure.
kidding me? I'm so lucky. But not just him. Just, we at Understand Photography, we do a free photo walk we call them almost free photo walks, because we don't charge, but sometimes there's an admission charge wherever we
Sure.
go. But just being around other photographers, you learn,
I know you do. And if people are willing to share what they know and they take time,
And a lot of people are.
they are. It's awesome.
I remember one of our first photo walks, and my training was mostly portraits, weddings, that kind of stuff. So a lot of the stuff that we do now, and plus the social media has expanded photography too.
Oh, for sure. And
But anyway, this guy said, well, I'll teach you how to do this thing called Zoom Blur. And I had never heard of it at the time. I love Zoom Blur now. But anyway, we were in Tin City, which is like a little shopping kind of place.
Yeah.
And he lays down to take a Zoom Blur of the lighting fixture. He lays down on the ground in this shopping area. It's like a touristy shopping area, right? So he's teaching us all how to do it. It was so funny because we're all taking turns laying on this dirty floor in this crowded shopping center, learning how to do Zoom Blur. But I mean, just being with other photographers, they teach and you learn and you ask questions, and it's just so good, so great.
And it's exciting to watch them learn, to see what they do when they get a good picture or something that they're really happy about. I mean, I'm thrilled for them.
Oh yeah. In fact, I had it was kind of a private lesson, I was the lighting person for this. She's a graphic artist, and she had this vision to do something from Game of Thrones, but she didn't know how to do the lighting. So I did the lighting for her, and I was kind of teaching her, but it wasn't really a lesson. I was more just doing the lighting. But she got it featured on, it was just last week, she got this whole amazing collage done, or whatever you want to call it. Composite. And she got it featured on some website already, and she was like all
That's awesome.
enthusiastic and thanking me, and it was right. It's
yeah,
fun when they
that's
learn
rewarding.
and get excited. So all right, tell me about the Costa Rica trip. Now you photograph a lot of hummingbirds. Where do you find these hummingbirds in Costa Rica? Is it
Well,
this
actually,
guy that you...
Yeah, we have this awesome guide that we have. He's a terrific spotter, but he's also, I mean, he's a naturalist, and he worked with the center in La Selva studying, and he really knows, and he knows the habitat, because there are hummingbirds in all different altitudes. You know, there's some that are up in the mountainous areas, and then there's some down in the coastal areas. So we try and hit those different areas so we can.
And they're all wild.
And they're all wild.
That blows my
We shoot them in
mind.
natural light.
Now give us some tips on shooting hummingbirds, because that's hard, because they're usually in the dark somewhere, because they like the shade, right? And their wings are flapping really fast.
They are. Those little guys.
And they're only this big.
I know. The little volcano is about that big. It's the tiniest little thing.
my
It's
God.
awesome.
So give me some tips on photographing hummingbirds.
Actually, the larger the lens, the better it is. You shoot either with a 500 or 600, and we try and get into an area where there is lighting, where there's flowers and lighting, and you try and make sure the lighting's behind you. But the biggest thing in getting the hummingbirds, if you really want to stop the action, is make sure your shutter speed is up. At least a minimum of 1250, if not more. I usually shoot around 2000.
Your shutter speed at 2000. How do you get enough light into your camera?
Well, with the cameras today, you can shoot your ISO up a lot higher. And I've just never had any problem
So you
with
put your
lighting.
ISO on.
I put my ISO up 1600, 2000, sometimes a little higher than that, but usually I try not to go much higher than 2000, but I know lots of people that do. The new camera now, the Nikon 850, can handle really high ISO.
Yeah, and you can't even get it. It's like back ordered everywhere.
Gary got it for me.
Gary got you one? Gary.
He did. It's a wonderful camera, it really is.
That's
It's
awesome.
been fun.
So you're a Nikon gal?
I am.
Okay. Always?
Always.
From the beginning?
From the beginning.
Well, it's hard to switch, because
It
once
is.
you invest your money in all the lenses, then you can't switch, because then you gotta buy all that stuff again.
That's right. And you really can't sell what you have for what you paid for it.
No.
So there's always a loss. No, I mean, there were many things that Canon had that, I think they're both really wonderful systems. And there are lots of things that Canon had that I liked, but as you say, to switch was
That's
going to
what
be
for me
a costly.
too. Although I'll tell you what, I've had some guests on my show that make me want to go to like mirrorless, a Sony or something, but I haven't made that leap yet. Now, what kind of gear do you have? Like a favorite lens that you use?
Yeah, my favorite lens is a 300, Nikon 300 2.8. It's a
And
fast.
Just a 300. It's not a zoom.
No, it's
how
just
heavy is that thing?
It's very heavy. I remember being in Bosque and seeing a man with one, and he had a bush hawk on his shoulder, and I said, "Oh, I see you have a bush hawk to hold it." And he said, "Yeah, because it's too heavy," and I hadn't bought mine yet.
I don't know what a bush hawk is.
Well, it's a gear that fits on your shoulder, and it supports the lens.
Oh.
And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm in trouble because I'm a woman and he's a man and he can't hold it. But I went ahead and got it, and it really and truly, you walk around with it for a few weeks and you forget you even have it in your hand.
Got some big muscles, do you? Don't
Few
mess with
muscles
Judy.
No. But that's a great lens, and it's sharp and it's fast. And for Wakota you really don't need much more than that. You don't
Because
need,
the animals or the wildlife is pretty close, right?
Yep.
Wood storks and...
Yeah, and sometimes the 300 is too much. The 70 to 200 can be a good lens for Wakota.
Okay.
If you want to get flight coming in, you want to get the whole, make sure you get the whole.
Do you have the roseate spoonbills there?
They have come. I haven't
not
seen
too
any
much?
this year.
What about sandhill cranes? Because we don't get them in Naples.
No.
No. Those are so cool, but you got to be a little farther north in Florida.
We did have them at Quiet Waters, which was up in the Wellington area.
Okay, we've
A
spoken at
couple
Wellington.
of years ago, and they had two colts. And it was fun. It was really fun to watch them. And, they're such good parents.
I know. I have a friend. She lives in North Fort Myers, right on the river, and she has a mom, dad, and child who's grown now, sandhill crane.
Yeah.
And she's always sending me pictures and making me jealous because it's right out her window.
Well, they're really more, I guess, in Central Florida, but we do have, the occasional ones here, but that's nice.
Yeah. So do you have any tips for, okay, what if somebody says, I want to pursue my dreams as a wildlife photographer? Give us the step-by-steps. What are they going to do? Even if they're 60. Right? You said you were 60?
That's a really good question, Peggy. I'm not too sure that I know how to answer it. I guess I would say to them, if you could narrow down the field, is it macro that you're most interested in, or is it flight, or is it just, more of a scenic wildlife? Some people take some wonderful pictures that are scenics. They include the background, but they get a beautiful composition, because you're going to buy gear accordingly. If you're going to be doing macro, then you're going to be looking at different lenses.
That's a really good point, because not many people can just buy everything all at once.
Well, you can't, and I think if you can, whatever your passion is, like I met a woman when we were in Alaska that was probably one of the best macro photographers that I knew, and she had the 200, the Nikon 200, just a straight 200. It's a great lens, and the reason it's so good is it allows you to stand back and get a picture, rather than some of our macros where you have to be back, in 6 inches from your subject.
Right.
And that's tough. But she had some beautiful work, and I love macro, but I didn't know that when I started photography, so I was basically into the, subjects that were further away. So then I wanted to get the 500 lens. That was my dream. But my first one was the 600, and I didn't know, because they were so expensive at that time, and well, they are now too. But
I was going to say they're still free.
I ended up buying Tom Viso's system. He was he's written a lot of books, a good photographer from Arizona, and he was switching from Nikon to Canon.
Oh.
And I just happened to hear about it at the time he was making that switch. So I bought the 600. His F5, it was still film, we weren't into digital yet, his F5 camera and his 2 teleconverters. And I remember when I sent the check off, I said, I can't believe I'm sending this off to somebody I've never met.
Oh, yeah.
But everything, of course, came in pristine condition, and I still have it.
Wow.
And he was such a nice man, and I'm proud that I own it.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's since passed away.
Oh, that's tough.
Yep. But he was very well known.
Okay. I guess I didn't know him, but
no, just at
it was
that
before
time.
my
And
time.
this is several years ago. Yeah, several years ago.
Okay. All right. So figure out what their specialty is. That's hard for new people, though.
It would be hard.
We teach a class. In fact, it's coming up February 17th here in Naples, Florida. We have an art business consultant come in and teach a day-long class on selling your photography as art. And the morning part of the session is we've got to narrow down your portfolio, because as photographers, most of us are all over the place. We don't have a specialty because, oh, this looks good, oh, I want to do that, oh, that looks cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do you find that? I mean, for you maybe it was easy, but I think for most of us it's hard to figure out what do we want to specialize, especially people who don't even really know photography that well.
Well, we have so much on the internet now for research purposes, if you're looking to try to decide what camera. First, of course, you've got to think of the price range, what's feasible for you at that time to buy. And then if you aren't sure, then probably a telephoto lens would be good, because it would give you a little bit of diversity. I mean, you'd have the opportunity of shooting things a little bit closer and further away. I mean, even a large lens is a good macro lens. A 500 or 600 is great because it can blow out your background and make your subject kind of pop. But that's a good question, Peggy.
I think maybe just by shooting a lot. That's probably the way that you'll find your passion. You know what I mean? The more situations you put yourself into. Like, I never in a million years, I'm from Detroit, and then I lived in Orlando and Naples, Fort Myers. I'm a city person, right? So I started getting a little, the only reason I got into nature photography was because my customers were into it. Not that I was interested into it.
That's interesting.
So one of my customers, she won a trip to stay in Clyde Butcher's house for the weekend. So she said, "Do you want to come?" I said, "Yeah." Because I had my son taught me this. I had a whole year of saying yes to everything. And my son did that, and I thought, that's a good idea, I'm going to do that. Because I thought, ew, Clyde Butcher's house out in the swamp, I don't know about that, But we stayed out there, and I met this guy named Chris Hopkins. He was, there, he was a friend, and we went in the swamp up to my waist, and I went nuts. I loved it so much. And now Chris is an amazing photographer. I wish he won't come on my show. I talk about him all the time on the show, but he won't come on. But he has taught me so much about nature photography, and he takes me out in the swamp to all these cool places. That would be awesome. But I wouldn't have never known that I liked that kind of photography if I hadn't tried it. And I didn't even want to try it because it didn't appeal to me. So it's something that maybe that's the advice. Just keep trying new things in your photography, and then maybe you'll find what that niche is. Because I think you're right. Having a niche will really help you get your name out there, because those kind of people will be looking at your pictures.
That's true. That's true. But I also understand what you're saying, because wildlife is very diversified. Because I like mackerels and I like hummingbirds, but then I like the big five in Africa, and so all of that it's just. They all take different lenses, so it's. If you're going to Africa, you would have to have a minimum of a 300 lens. Really, the Canon 1-400 is a great lens for shooting in Africa, because in Africa you want to have that flexibility. If you're shooting zebras and they happen to get into sparring, if you've got a straight lens, and they start coming closer, you're going to lose that picture. So a telephoto for Africa is probably the ultimate lens to have.
Now, can you rent lenses for a long period of time if you're going to Africa?
Yeah, there are places. I've never done it.
I just thought of that, because I'm always telling people rent lenses, because we have an affiliate deal with borrowlenses.com, and I've rented lenses from them, but I never thought about for a trip to take a lens. That's kind of a good idea.
I know people have done that, but I don't know.
Because how much I told you I impulse bought that 150 to 600 Sigma lens. I bought the contemporary, and it was $1,000, so it wasn't super expensive, but still $1,000 is $1,000. If you think you're only going to use it once when you go to Africa, it might be better to rent.
Yeah, I think that's a very good suggestion.
And hopefully they have insurance that comes with that, just in case.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea.
I don't know. I never even thought about that.
Well, that could. I remember when I got the bigger lenses, that was my fear, if something happened. And I know it's happened to people. A really good friend of mine lost his, and he didn't have it insured. He had a 600 and his camera, and I think it fell into the water. I don't know if he was getting into a boat or whatever, and it fell in, and he lost it, and he was there without a backup. And I thought, oh, Jeff, that must have been so awful. I can't imagine being on a trip that far away and then not having anything to shoot with. But so it's always a good idea to travel with two cameras, have a backup.
That's
just
good
in
advice.
Case something happens.
All right, so we're going back to following our dreams. So we're going to figure out our niche, which is our passion. Mm-hmm. We're going to what? What's step 2?
Well, just never give up. I think it's really important not to expect too much from yourself in the beginning. It takes time. It takes practice. If you really love it, you're going to get out there and you're going to shoot. Shooting flight.
That's hard.
It took a while. You just don't just think you're going to get that picture. You've got to work at it. The more you work at it, the better you're going to be at it.
Yeah,
and if you love it, it's not work. You're just so thrilled to have the opportunity.
But I think for all of us, we get distracted easily. Maybe it's a good idea to set a goal. Hey, I'm going to go out every Tuesday or Tuesday and Thursday or something like that, and shoot just to keep getting better.
But not to get down on yourself. I remember having a really good friend. It was a man, and he got a 500 lens, and he was so excited. He was just beside himself, and the next thing I knew, he was selling it. And I said, why are you selling your lens? And he said, well, I'm not nearly as good as all these other people. And I said, oh, don't say that. I said, we all start somewhere.
Yep.
We all start somewhere.
And handling
give
a 500
yourself
millimeter
time.
lens it's like learning to write with your left hand if you're right-handed. I mean, it takes time to learn it.
And be patient when you are out there too is a really big thing. I often see people walking, you know, they see one thing, they take a picture and they walk on. I think the biggest thing is to go where the light is to start. Mm-hmm. And then when you've got the great light and you've got a good background, then your possibilities of getting, because you can take pictures anywhere, but if it's not in good lighting, you don't have a good background, you're not going to be happy with them.
Yeah.
And one of the examples I have of that is one night I went out in Green Cay, and I went to the back, because at the very back of Green Cay, that's where the lighting is really pretty in the evening. And it was that beautiful golden light, which lasts, about 20 minutes. The water was like glass, and I thought, oh my gosh, there wasn't a thing there. But I stood there and I thought, if something comes in, this is going to be a winner. And sure enough, a tricolored heron came in, and you know, when they start to fish, it's like ballet on water. It was so beautiful, and I was hyperventilating because I thought, this is so beautiful, this is so beautiful.
Oh my God.
And I got a few pictures then. And,
oh wow. So being patient.
Yeah, really being patient. And if you are in a place where a lot of things are happening, try and stay there. Don't think about, oh, well, I wonder what's down the line, because often you'll go down the boardwalk a little bit further and there isn't anything, and you've left behind something that could have possibly turned into something that you would have really liked.
All right, now, I'm not a bird photographer at all, because there's something that you just keep talking about that I lack, called patience. So so you're watching this tricolor. How many pictures are you going to take of this bird?
Wow, that's a good question, Peggy. I don't know. I suppose I took maybe 75. I stayed there.
And you stayed there until the light left?
I did. I stayed there and watched that bird, and I shoot rapidly. I put it on continuous high when I'm doing something like that, because you get that stop action. Really, cameras can catch more than the eye can see.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't see everything I was getting. If I took credit for that, I'd be lying. You know, but you just keep shooting continuously, and then you're going to possibly get something that you're going to be really happy with. And it was just the reflection, the way the feet were, and.
Now, how did you learn about composition? Oh, you said you were a painter, too.
I did.
Because that's something that we see a lot in bird photography with beginners. They cut off, like, the reflection in a funny place, or the bird's feet in a funny place, or something like that. And you just reminded me of that when you said the reflection.
Well, a lot of it came from painting, because you do learn color and balance, but, you know, some of it came, too, from Artie Morris's birdphotographers.net. When I was a moderator on his site, we had to critique images, and it made you become very aware of the technical aspect. I mean, I think photography is a true art, and it's in the eye of the beholder. There isn't anything that's in cement.
Right.
But there are certain things, like you were mentioning, you don't want to cut off the feet. You don't want to have a bird coming out of the picture. He's right on the edge, and all the space in your canvas to the left. You want to make sure that space is in front of the bird so he can leave the canvas.
Leave room in front.
Yeah, leave room in front. That's right. So there were a lot of little things that you can, you know.
Well, where did you learn all that?
I don't know.
You don't know? Isn't that funny?
I guess it's just, you know, it's through the journey.
Just
you know,
a little bit at a time, huh?
But composition too is something I think you have a sense for. It's like.
Yeah, but I learned a lot about composition from taking classes and studying on the internet and things like that. But I didn't. You know, I think I had somewhat of a natural eye, but
Well,
I think learning the rules really helped me improve my photography a lot.
I think it does. I do. I agree with you. Yeah.
Even though I don't always follow the rules. Although sometimes I fight with people.
Well, rules
Because I'm like, I don't think I'm not breaking any rules if I'm centering a picture.
Well, and
'Cause I
sometimes that works very well.
And it's not breaking a rule.
It's what you like. You're
She's trying to
right.
be
It's not
diplomatic. You're with him, I can tell.
No. There are situations like a square picture. You don't very often see square, and I think that there are times where it works, but I think the rule is probably not as often as one would think. That it would work.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the rule is to try to keep your subject on one of the grid lines of the rule of thirds instead of centering them.
Yeah.
But I like centered pictures sometimes.
Well, I do too, because sometimes they make a very strong statement.
Exactly, especially like if you're a bird photographer, you got a bird looking straight at the camera, that probably is going to be a good centered picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've had some where they're centered, and I think it works, but I can't say I've had a lot of them that way, but I have had some. Yeah.
How hard is it to get a bird to look at the camera? Does that happen very often?
I never really thought about it, Peggy.
I just thought of it just now.
It's
I don't know.
hard to get one flying straight towards you. That's probably one of the hardest flight pictures to get.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you don't see too many of them.
You've got to be following that one for, right as it's coming into you to catch it. It'd be hard to catch a grab shot of that.
Sure would.
A stationary bird, it wouldn't be so hard because you just sit there and wait till it does look at you.
Yeah, keep it on that continuous drive mode. And
It's going to get you. Yeah.
Now, a lot of bird photographers have all these, what's the right thing to say? Like unwritten rules that you never bother the birds, don't use bird calls to attract their attention, and that is just because we're trying to let wildlife be wildlife, right?
Exactly.
Is there anything else that you can talk about?
No, but I think
about
that's
that?
important. The bird calls, I know they're used, and sometimes maybe it works, but you never know what that bird's doing. You don't know if it's sitting on a nest, and you don't know if you're interfering it. The female flies off, and she leaves her eggs exposed, so then they're in danger of being, attacked. I'm not a big fan of any kind of, having mice to attract a snowy or whatever, but I know a lot of people do. And everybody has to make that choice for themselves. Yeah. You just have to be honest with yourself and do what you feel is right. If it's going to endanger, I wouldn't do anything to cause danger. And one example I have of that is when we were in Brazil. We were going down the Rio Negro River to film the baby skimmers. And we got there, and the mother and father just came in, and they started dive bombing. It was just Gary and I and the fellow who was manning our boat. And I said, forget it. I don't want to do this. So I never did get a picture. But the strange thing was when I turned around, I looked over and I saw a caiman. And it was just on a little peninsula of sand, narrow. His mouth was open, total reflection in the water, and the sun was hitting him, so he looked like he was made of gold.
Oh my goodness.
And I got 4 pictures. I lay on my stomach in the boat, and I got 4 pictures, and I thought, oh my gosh, if those turn out, that'll be something. I didn't know. You take them so fast, it was a grab shot. But they did. And it's one of my favorite pictures I've ever taken. And I thought, if we honor nature, we get something back in return.
Ooh, that's good. Heather's good at picking out the quotes. That was a good one, Heather.
No, but I believe that. Don't ever become discouraged because you missed something. There'll be something else. Photography, that's the excitement of photography. If we could go out and get everything we wanted to every time we went,
yeah,
it wouldn't be the same.
Right, yeah. That is cool. So what's next for you? Well, you've got how many trips? You got something coming in April and May?
There's 5 this trip.
5
this year. Yeah.
Wow, that is so exciting.
And there's so many places to explore. There's a million places I'd love to go. It's just, And I feel very blessed that I can go, that we are able to.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. And it's wonderful for me. I think the reward is when somebody writes me and says thank you for showing me something that I'll never be able to see. I mean, that really kind of chokes me up because.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're offering a service to people, and it makes you feel good when you help people.
Exactly.
And even if they're paying you to come on the trip or something, they're paying you because they see the value of going with you on this trip. You know where to go, you can help them with their cameras and all that other kind of stuff too.
Yeah, and it's fun.
It's very gratifying when you know that that you made them happy, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what's your website again?
Nature's Tapestry, JLM.com.
Okay. All right, so remember to check the show notes on understandphotography.com because Heather's going to type up everything not everything we talked about, but the highlights of today's interview with Judy Malek. And there you can find a link to her website, and you can read all about her fabulous trips and see some of her fabulous photography, right?
Thank you.
And Gary's too, your husband's
Gary,
as well.
Yeah, he loves it.
He loves it too?
Yep. He does.
Poor Gary's sitting in the background, didn't even get to be on the show. I only have 2 microphones.
He's been awesome. He's been wonderful. He's just a great organizer, and he really is very fine-tuned into his trips. We make sure that everybody gets everything, the good accommodations, good food, good everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. He's
That's
worth his weight in gold.
Ah, good thing you married him.
It is. We've been married, I won't tell you. A long time.
You snatched him up before somebody else got him.
I was actually 15 when I met him.
You were only 15?
15. He was 17.
Wow. That's
And we're still buddies.
Oh, I love to hear that.
We
That's
are.
so
He's my best friend.
Oh,
Yes.
that is so sweet. Well, thank you for being on the Understand
Well,
Photography Show.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure, and a real pleasure meeting you, Peggy.
It's nice to meet you too. And goodbye to Gary. Next week on the Understand Photography Show, my guest is going to be Spencer Pullen, and we're going to talk about large format film photography. Now, there's something a little bit different from what a lot of us are doing now. So tune in here on the Understand Photography Facebook page at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday to watch it live, or again, you can watch the recording on YouTube or listen as a podcast on iTunes. And please, again, help us meet our goal of 1,000 subscribers by February 20th, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/understandphotography. I'm Peggy Farron. Thank you so much for watching episode number 73 with Judy Malek of the Understand Photography Show. We'll see you next week. Thank you for watching the Understand Photography Show. It would help us immensely if you would click like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.